Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Emily, can you pop up there? I just want to get my mouse. More.
Flag.
Thank you.
Yeah, shoot. There is a chance that I can do it. But not, maybe not from in particular, but from fossil fuels in general, right? Right. Right. I guess the potential happiness is not as long as there's still investments being handled that way. Right. No, I see what you're saying. That was kind of poor phrasing. But I understand what you're saying. Or onto, right, exactly, or onto a offer. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Let me, can I call you back when I'm to get I'll call you back.
Emily, Gabe is going to come to grab the light view, so worst case, if I just run out to give it to him, he's going to come inside, but we'll feed this later. There's no noon in for you, though. No afternoon.
Oh, I thought Councilmember said. Let me get a chair for her. Who's got a chair? Is she coming? She won't? Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin today, I want to address a couple of things that have been the subject of misinformation over the past couple of days. The issues with school budgets have been weighing on me and many of us, just as they have on our families, teachers, and principals. Our schools are a top priority. We all care about our students in schools, and we know that the pandemic has impacted them greatly. The school budgets released last week have created challenges for our communities, largely because of declining federal funding and enrollment, but also because the decisions of this mayoral administration no longer recognize that our schools and students are still experiencing the challenges from this pandemic. Our students need support to recover and thrive. Our school professionals need our support to help achieve those goals, and the Department of Education has failed to recognize this reality. When these budgets were released last week, we brought our concerns about them into budget negotiations. It became clear that the administration was not going to address the issue within the budget, so that left us to address this issue outside of the budget. That is what we're going to do. And we will not stop until we secure what our students need to succeed at this critical moment. I want to be clear that the rhetoric some have chosen to use that this council cut education funds is not only inaccurate, but also counterproductive to our shared goal of supporting our schools. It's unnecessary, and it's distracting from the problems and solutions that we need to address. This budget invested more city funds into our schools than the prior year and the most in city history. The biggest issue was one of federal funding and DOE spending. I hoped that our federal officials could play a constructive role in helping us to resolve this issue by tracking this money they allocated to our city more closely, rather than what some chose to do in pointing fingers to score cheap political points. With all due respect, pointing fingers and evading responsibility do not reflect the leadership our city needs at any level of government. The Department of Education's return to the existing enrollment-based school budget formula that it suspended during the pandemic due to its use of federal money is what we need to target. The Department of Education and the remaining federal funds should be our focus. The solutions exist there. And that's where this council's focus is, fighting to achieve actual solutions for our schools and students. As a council, we're committed to addressing this issue. We will be working in our districts and together as members to solve this challenge. That is my commitment, as well as our Chair of Education, Councilmember Rita Joseph, and our Chair of Oversight and Investigations, Councilmember Gail Brewer, and our members of this body. We'll work with our members to identify the specific challenges faced by our local schools. We'll hold an oversight hearing in the coming days to identify and scrutinize every dollar of federal stimulus funding received or expected to be received by our city that could fill the gaps faced by our schools. And we will push the DOE to prioritize funding from these federal dollars or its bloated central budget to meet the critical needs of our schools. We will take every action available to protect our students and families who rely on our school system, working with all stakeholders, our parents, students, principals, and communities. City elected officials have a responsibility to ensure everyday services like sanitation and public education are delivered to our communities. We do not have the luxury to perpetually pontificate and point fingers. We have to deliver. This is why the council takes its role of holding city operations and agencies accountable through legislative oversight very, very seriously. In this budget, the council funded critical services that the more than 8 million New Yorkers depend on each day, including increased city funding for schools, programs for our youth, immigrant New Yorkers, older adults, unhoused neighbors, and low-income communities. Some federal elected officials forget that a city is not managed through Twitter or social media. We don't have that privilege. I know there have been a lot of allegations, news coverage, and a social media echo chamber about me for the last few days. Allegations of me exacting retribution that denied certain council members discretionary funding based on their votes or divergent opinions. I've sat back and decided not to engage in the back and forth mudslinging and frankly slander by some who acted without factual information, showed no care to, and never bothered to even seek the truth. Today, I want to set the record straight because facts still do matter, at least to me, even if they may not to others. When so many act and speak in an echo chamber without being grounded in truth, we enter into a very dangerous environment. I want to be clear. It is simply factually incorrect that I excluded members from speakers' lists funding for groups in their districts or that they requested funding support for. It is also contrary to fact that I took away funding from groups based on how the members of the districts that represent them voted on the budget. The budget process, and in particular, the discretionary funding process, is one that is pretty well defined at this point. Yet, it is clear that so many still don't understand it, so I just want to clarify the process for everyone. Every council member receives $150,000 of funding to designate for youth groups and $110,000 designated to providers of services for older adults in their districts. Each member also gets $400,000 in local initiative funding to allocate to organizations serving their communities, as well as anti-poverty funding that is based on a formula using the 2016 American Community Survey data related to the number of constituents below the federal poverty level. Based on these figures, each member receives additional funds ranging from $25,000 to $100,000 in $25,000 increments. Last week, I announced a new Community Safety and Victim Services initiative, providing $100,000 for each member to allocate to organizations that strengthen communities to make them safer through holistic safety investments. It can be used to support youth programs, physical and mental health care, community safety initiatives, victim services, or other local programs that are essential to bolstering community safety. This all in total amounts to a baseline of discretionary funding ranging from $685,000 to $760,000 through these allocations. There are also other initiatives that provide funds to various organizations across the city, including opportunities for each member to designate recipients that serve their districts. In addition to all of these areas of discretionary funding, there is an additional speakers list and speakers initiative to address citywide needs. This process to access that money is that individual council members, borough delegations, and our many caucuses submit priority lists to my office. Those wish lists are often long and equate to multiple millions of dollars. And when members submit their lists, we seek to fulfill those requests to the extent possible, but there is simply not enough money to meet every single request. In making these decisions, there are a lot of considerations to balance across council members, stakeholders, caucuses, delegations, and more. We try to reach a balance in determining allocations, including by gauging where broad support and funding gaps exist, but inevitably, we cannot fulfill every entire wish list because there just isn't enough funding to go around. Every member, regardless of their vote on the budget, received funding allocations from these speaker-initiated funds. It is inaccurate to say some members lost money or were locked out of funding because of their vote. An initial news story that many outlets followed claimed that, but it's simply not true. First, any changes in allocations from this list are not unusual, especially when we have new members who may have different priorities than their predecessors, which we have. Second, members who voted no on the budget had groups in their district and their requests funded from this pot of money. The only distinction that occurred was that some members whose districts received allocations from this pot of funding did not have their names attached to those allocations because they did not vote to approve a budget that includes those allocations. There is no line item vote on the budget. You vote up or you vote down on the entirety of the budget. It does not mean allocations or items on their wish lists were not made. In fact, they were, as Schedule C indicates if you look at the funded organizations. I want to be clear once again, members were not shut out from this funding from the speaker's list based on how they voted. It's disappointing that it would be misconstrued or conveyed in any other way, and that clearly has been the case. Let me be very, very clear. I am not a speaker who is interested in punishing any community. In fact, as the representative of a community that has been historically underserved, I certainly appreciate the investments that we make as a body to our local communities. At the same time, the decisions we make as legislators are important, and the distinctions in those decisions are also important. Passing the city budget is one of the most consequential actions that is decided by this body. If we do not pass the city budget, the consequences are not trivial. Our failure to pass a budget can be disastrous, with us losing our local sovereignty and the council's power being undermined. I don't have an issue with council members' strong convictions on the budget. In fact, I encourage it. Every council member has a decision to make, and that decision is respected. The seriousness of our responsibility, however, also requires us to stand by our decisions and the distinctions they create as well. All 51 council members are New Yorkers, proud New Yorkers. This means there are 51 distinct opinions. If we all allowed ourselves to reject the entire city budget over specific funding items, we would never pass a budget. The city would lose its independent governance, and most importantly, New Yorkers would suffer. There is frankly a lot of sentiment in our body about those distinctions. None of us truly agrees with every part of any city budget. I truly respect a council member's decision to reject the budget based on specific funding issues. But we need to be clear about the consequences for our city and this council if we were to all take that approach. Members make sacrifices for their districts in this city, as well as to ensure this body maintains power as the independent branch of government that New Yorkers need. We as a council are stewards of the city's financial and governing health. That must be balanced with our personal positions and many other considerations. The ability for some to vote down a budget due to a position on issues that are no doubt of serious importance without it pushing our city over the edge is only made possible by those who vote to approve it. If you decide to vote against the city budget, despite its positive aspects and funding for your community, in addition to what you take issue with, it is not a punishment to your community to not have your name attached to an additional allocation of funding that you voted against. It is simply a distinguishing indication of your vote against the entire budget that includes this allocation. I just want to reiterate that no member in their district was shut out of this pot of funding. It's more important about how we distinguish our decisions within a collective body with a collective responsibility. The resources for communities have not been targeted. Rather, it is the public relations value of a funding allocation that has changed. I hope we all understand that before making any accusations or assertions of retribution, that this is clear and clearly understood. With that said, we will now move on to today's stated agenda. We will be voting on the following land use items: Sutter Place NPC, an application by HPD to facilitate the development of 4 new 100% affordable housing buildings on city-owned vacant land with approximately 46 units and commercial space in council member Nurses and Barons districts. EMS Station 17 new facility, site selection, acquisition of property and zoning special permit for a new FDNY EMS station in Councilmember Stevens District. 98 3rd Avenue rezoning will facilitate the development of an 8-story mixed-use building with 24 housing units, 8 of which will be affordable pursuant to MIH and ground floor commercial space in Councilmember Ressler's district. We will also be voting on the following finance items. The council will also be voting on 3 resolutions to set the penalty interest for property owners who pay their tax bills late. These are regular votes taken every year by the City Council. Last year, recognizing the impact of the pandemic, the council voted to lower these penalty rates to the lowest level ever. These current rates mean that most homeowners are charged a penalty interest of 3% if they do not pay their taxes on time. This year, we're adopting rates that are only slightly higher than last year, I should say. These rates we're adopting today will be the second lowest rates ever. We do not take the idea of raising penalties lightly, but we must do so to ensure that we have timely compliance of property tax payments. With interest rates rising and inflation up, keeping penalty rates unchanged would put the reliability of the city's largest revenue source at risk. So the step we are taking today is one that balances penalties as low as possible, while still ensuring that the city retains its proper cash flow to pay its bills on time and maintain city services. Now, while it is important that we set rates that encourage the timely payment of property taxes, we recognize that there are homeowners who are struggling and still need help. And in those cases, charging higher interest rates does not help resolve their issues. That's why today, I'm directing my staff to prioritize the work of the reintroduction of Introduction 1262 and asking Chair Brannan to fast-track a hearing on this bill. This legislation would set up a process to allow the city to charge a minimal interest rate on small property owners who are behind in their taxes and engage with the city to manage their taxes by entering into a payment plan or deferral program. This will allow these property owners time and space to resolve their debt at manageable pace and minimal cost. We're also voting on Introduction number 347, sponsored by Majority Leader Keith Powers, that will suspend the annual tax on state and licensed retailers selling liquor, wine, or beer at retail for on or off premises consumption within the City of New York for the tax year beginning in June 2022. Currently, the liquor license surcharge is imposed on the distributors and commercial importers of beer and liquor. It is paid by all establishments in the city that require on-premise and off-premise liquor license, including restaurants, pubs, hotels, grocery stores, liquor and wine stores, entertainment venues, etc. The surcharge is imposed on the license fees paid to the state at a rate of 25%. SEBCO 4. The New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development seeks a partial 40-year exemption from real property taxes for property located at Block 2697, Lot 18 and 19, and Block 2732, Lot 31, Bronx, Council District 17. SEPCO 4 is a tax exemption only project of a HUD-assisted rental housing portfolio for low-income families in the Bronx and Councilmember Salamanca's district. The SEPCO 4 project consists of two buildings, a conjoined 6-story apartment building and another 5-story apartment building with a total of 71 dwelling units. The project will refinance its existing debt, and the refinance proceeds will be used to rehabilitate the portfolio, addressing critical needs including joist repairs, upgrade and replacement of deteriorated mechanical systems and equipment, and structural repairs as required within each building. None of the buildings in the portfolio have undergone significant capital repairs since their HUD-funded rehabilitations in 1982. In addition, we will vote on the appointment of Leila Bozarg to the New York City Planning Commission. Lastly, we will vote on the following legislation. We're voting on Resolution 247, sponsored by our Housing and Buildings Chair, Councilmember Pirina Sanchez, that would determine a public emergency requiring rent control in the city of New York. That would determine a public emergency requiring rent control in the city of New York continues to exist and will continue to exist on and after July 1st, 2022. We're also voting on Introduction 558A, also sponsored by Councilmember Sanchez, that would extend the rent stabilization laws. Pursuant to state law, to maintain rent stabilization laws, the council must periodically determine whether there is an ongoing housing emergency, defined as a vacancy rate of not more than 5% of the city's rental housing stock. If the council determines an emergency continues to exist, the council may pass legislation extending the city's rent stabilization law until the following determination is due. This determination is based on data and findings from a triennial survey known as the Housing and Vacancy Survey, or HVS, which is sponsored by HPD and the Census Bureau. These pieces of legislation declare the council's determination that there is an ongoing housing emergency and that the emergency will continue after the current expiration of the rent stabilization law, July 1st, 2022. Introduction 558A continues the laws that allow for residential rent regulation. It would also amend the expiration date of the New York City rent stabilization law from July 1st, 2022 to April 1st, 2024, which would put the HVS and renewal of rent regulation back on its ordinary triennial cycle. I now invite Councilmember Sanchez to come forward and speak about her legislation if she can stand on her feet today.
Good afternoon. Today I am proud and excited to sponsor Intro 558A and Resolution 247. These bills, which passed in Housing and Buildings yesterday, are slated to be voted on in today's stated meeting. They are critical to ensuring the city's rent stabilization can continue in New York City, following the findings of the city's Housing and Vacancy Survey. And I just want to put a finer point on this. The Housing and Vacancy Survey is the city's most comprehensive tool in understanding what tenants are living through in the city of New York. This most recent survey found a citywide vacancy rate of 4.54%. And these most recent findings go much, much deeper to help us understand what is happening in our boroughs, what is happening at different rent levels and at different affordability levels. And the most recent findings tell us a few things. One would need to earn at least $110,000 to move into the median rental in New York City. The median asking rents in the city of New York are 74% higher in 2021 than they were in 2014, while wages have increased only 16%. And this number is much lower for residents who are low income at a vacancy rate of 1%, and particularly, of course, as a representative of the Bronx, we have a vacancy rate of only 0.78%. So despite federal stimulus programs and other government programs to aid tenants, still 13% of renters are missing and making late payments on their rents over the last year. Upon these analyses, I'm more certain than ever before that the urgency of the urgency of the Housing and Vacancy Survey and the rent emergency in New York City is very, very real. HPD and the census conduct the housing vacancy survey. They're compiled in 2021. People were surveyed in 2021. The findings were compiled this year, and on May 16th, the New York City Council received the preliminary findings from HPD. Over the last month, we have sat and analyzed the findings from HPD, digested and reviewed, and on June 7th, we held a hearing on the findings. Yesterday, we passed, as I said, the 2 pieces of legislation in committee, and today the full council will have the opportunity to vote. This is very critical to underscore. This is our role in the council. Rent stabilization regime depends on the New York City Council's determination that the housing and vacancy survey was correctly, accurately conducted, and that the findings are finding a vacancy rate below 5%. Rent-stabilized apartments have provided and continue to provide a critical source of affordable housing in the city, and I'm proud to carry this bill for 1 million stabilized households. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sanchez. And finally, the council will also vote on Introduction 303A, sponsored by Councilmember Alexa Aviles. The bill would require the Department of Homeless Services and the Human Resources Administration to track and report certain data regarding rental assistance programs. In order to better understand the outcomes and impact of various rental assistance programs, additional data is needed. This bill would require that DHS and HRA track and report on outcomes of the City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Supplement, or City FEPS, a rental assistance program created for New York City residents. The bill would provide greater transparency around enrollment rates and utilization, including how long an individual or family has enrolled in the City FEPS program before actually utilizing the voucher. Councilmember Aviles couldn't join us today, but we thank her very much for her hard work on this bill. And with that, I will take on-topic questions first.
So we're going to do one round of questioning today on topic, which means everything the speaker discussed. So just to make sure that's clear. All right, here we go. Chris?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the speaker's initiative that you mentioned with the discretionary funding, you said it was not a punishment to exclude the names of the no voting members, but if it's not a punishment, then why even remove their names? Doesn't that send a message that, basically stripping them of the credit for those allocations that they requested? Doesn't that become a symbolic punishment in itself?
Well, again, the budget is not about a single member or group of council members. It's about funding programs or initiatives that New Yorkers depend on, which we do and which we did. There's no ownership provided as far as the view of the council members that did not believe in the budget.
But all the other members got their names. All the other members who voted yes got their names appended to those projects.
Correct.
It seems like a message to the no voters.
There is no message to the no voters per se. It is merely showing that those that voted no are not assigned credit to those allocations that are still coming from the speaker's allocations.
Elizabeth?
I wanted to ask about the education funding. You're saying that it's not a cut, but at the same time, principals are sending out letters to their staff saying that these are warning letters that be prepared, you might lose your job. I mean, that's certainly a cut in their eyes, and losing programs is certainly a cut to children and their families. Why is it not a cut?
We consider it an enrollment adjustment. We can play on the words all day long. The bottom line is that principals, which we know, principals and students are more than likely going to be affected by whatever happens, whether there is increase to some schools or a decrease to some schools, or whether some have no change at all. The bottom line is that this city council is determined and committed to working with our schools, to doing the very best that we can to sustain them and make them whole and keep them whole. We are still in talks with the administration on how to make this happen.
You're still in talks, so would you be asking Mayor Adams to allocate, like, money from the federal, like the roughly $5 billion federal stimulus that the controller says he's sitting on in DOE funds?
That-
Taking 15 from that? Is that the idea?
That is not essentially the idea, but it's certainly something that we are still considering. We are considering other options that we see at the table at this point, and we are going to bring that to the admin.
Bottom line is you think you can avert these scenarios, these cuts before September?
It is certainly our hope to do just that. Yeah.
Yes, Speaker, can you just clarify the Boys and Girls Club, which was cited as an example in Astoria, which sought $150,000, but they're only getting $75,000. You're stating that that was not a cut to punish the council member who voted against the budget.
Absolutely not. And I'm so glad you brought them up because the Boys and Girls Club is a baby of my former colleague, Costa Constantinides. One of the most important things to me and to the council is making sure that our children are taken care of, Andrew. And we believe that it was an oversight that we will fix. And we have already committed to doing that. If there was an oversight made in that funding, that will certainly be fixed. And we've already committed to doing that with former Councilmember Constantinides, Councilmember Caban, whatever that was, we're going to fix it.
And just as a quick follow-up, you mentioned at the outset federal officials who may have posted things on social media, and a lot of us know that that refers to AOC in particular.
Who? Sorry.
One of the things she posted was that this was dirty politics. She used the phrase movie villain. And she has 13 million followers on Twitter and 8.5 million on Instagram. I just wondered how that felt.
I didn't look at it, so I didn't feel it, quite honestly. I stayed far away from the Twitterverse. I had staff, family members, friends, others who were very, very concerned for me. And I let them know, they were letting me know bits and pieces. And I didn't even have to stop anybody from saying, don't tell me, because they know me and they know the space that I operate in. And it is a very clean space that I choose to be in. And I don't wrap myself around negativity, as a lot of folks know about me. I choose not to embrace that type of negativity. What I would have hoped, though, Andrew, and I will say this to this audience, is that if there were ever any misunderstanding, misinformation, or anything like that, that there would have been enough professional courtesy to pick up the phone and come to the source.
Emily?
Speaker, I do think I need more clarity. How is giving the members who voted no on your budget the funding but not the credit, how is that not an act of retaliation?
It is an act of retaliation. Any act of retaliation for me would have been an act of retaliation upon a community, and that is certainly not what happened in this case. As I said in my remarks, the names were not there because the vote to permit this funding was not there. So that is the way that I reasoned. The vote to permit this funding was not there. The money still.
Lose out, the members do.
Well, I don't know if I don't consider the members losing out. They're elected by their communities, so their communities win.
Madam Speaker, with regard to the budget vote, do you feel the 6 members who voted no are representative of the Progressive Caucus as a whole, or are they becoming some sort of faction unto themselves? And just as a quick aside, as a member yourself of the caucus, are you an active participant in meetings and discussions of the caucus?
Thank you for the question. Everybody doesn't ask me about that Progressive Caucus. I'm a member of every caucus, including LGBTQ, Jewish, Irish, BLAC, so I'm a member of all of the caucuses. I don't really know, in all honesty, how the Progressive Caucus is moving as a body. The visual of this vote, though, certainly indicates that everybody is working independently, depending on their own independent principles and values.
So Speaker, we fucked up, and the numbers were not zeroed out. I look forward to correcting that. I wish we'd got that information sooner. I gave her an opportunity a couple days ago to explain on Monday, but we do look forward to correcting that. That's it. Now we've looked at all the budget numbers. We've looked at this discretionary funding, and it does seem that the average allocation for the members that voted no is noticeably lower than those that voted yes. Now, I understand there's a lot of factors that go into the
Well, actually, that question is very hard to determine at this point. We had so many meetings and briefings around the budget itself, around allocations, around which pot is which, around which is which. So the question, quite frankly, is really, really difficult to answer at this point in hindsight. I will just let you know that we tried to give communities exactly what communities needed, and stretching across the city, it's a lot of mouths to feed.
All the members give you a list of projects that they'd like funded.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that you consider the projects from those who cast votes in favor of your budget before you consider the requests from those who cast votes against?
No.
So then how, as Jeff was pointing out, how did we end up in a world where people who voted no got less money out of the speaker's bonus pot, if you will, than people who voted yes?
Well, I believe I just answered that there were many, many different briefings and meetings around the various pots, the various initiatives. We still have capital projects to take a look at as well. And there are a significant number of mouths to feed all the way around. All the way around. I dare say that a lot of the capital projects look very, very good no matter how one voted. So there is a bigger picture.
Well, let me try flipping it on its head. Why should council members be rewarded if they don't play ball on the budget? Why should they expect money from the bonus pot?
The bonus pot, again, and just taking a look at the bonus pot and the characteristics of the quote-unquote bonus pot. The bonus pot is at the discretion of any speaker, and the money that goes out to the various districts is taken a look at very, very closely across the initiatives, across the agencies, across a whole lot of different variables. And again, we've got a lot of capital projects coming forward, and every district is taken a look at, is going to be looked at, and every district is going to be taken care of.
Do you view it as a tool when whipping votes?
A tool to whip votes?
Yeah.
I didn't use it as a tool to whip votes, so I can't answer that yet. Ask me next year.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Vicky Palladino made some pretty aggressive comments about story time. We've seen members punished in the past for, comments. Like, I guess I'm just wondering if you had any response to Councilmember Palladino, or planning to punish her in any way, or if that's not something that you see as your responsibility.
Yeah, I personally find Councilmember Palladino's comments deeply problematic. Any behavior or statements stemming from hate or intolerance is completely repugnant. The council is investigating right now Councilmember Palladino's behavior, and we're investigating our options for taking swift action necessary to respond.
Ruben Diaz Sr. lost his committee assignments.
I'm aware, I was here.
Do you think that's an appropriate response this time around?
We are having, the council is considering all options at this time.
Reach out to us via follow-up, guys. Thank you.
One more.